Hey, welcome back to YT Finance, and today we are talking about Palantir Technology stock, ticker symbol PLTR, and we will also talk about Senseonics SENS stock news. We will begin by talking about how Jim Cramer from CNBC's Mad Money loves Palantir stock and says that it's a clear buy right now. Next, we will discuss the latest PLTR stock news, and we will also perform some Palantir stock analysis. Then after that, we will discuss some concerning dark pool activity regarding Palantir Technologies. After that, we will then go over why Palantir stock might crash because of the heat that Peter Thiel is under concerning his Roth IRA. Then lastly, we will end by talking about if Senseonics SENS stock is a buy under $4. Go and press the like button right now for more PLTR stock news and SENS stock news updates. Comment down below what you think of the stock market's pullback recently. Remember to turn on all subscription notifications to stay informed, and now let's get right into today's stories. Jim Cramer has talked very positively about Palantir Technologies recently, and he even said this, and I quote, "Palantir is a buy. They have special technology. I wish we knew all the contracts because it's involved with the government. They are a very good company, and I say you should buy Palantir." End quote. So we have two thumbs up from Jim Cramer, who I really don't always agree with, but in this instance, I do agree with him because I do believe that PLTR stock is an absolutely amazing investment, especially if you plan to hold it long term. Jim Cramer is very right when he pointed out Palantir's impressive contracts with the government, but because we are long-term investors here, we have to know that the government contracts will provide steady revenues over the long term, but most of Palantir's long-term growth revenue will actually come from their commercial sector. Recently, the entire stock market showed weakness, which was clearly seen in its most recent pullback, but before the pullback, the PLTR stock price broke the $27.49 resistance level, which caused the stock to rally, which was fantastic news. This reinvigorated investors to buy more PLTR shares, which caused Palantir's social media mentions to spike up, because retail investors did not want to miss out on a potential huge rally. The correlation between Palantir's stock price increasing and their social media mentions growing was absolutely astounding, because not only did it act like a catalyst which increased the stock price, but it also helped Palantir gain new ground on the stock chart, which caused their support levels to also rise. After breaking through Palantir's major resistance levels, the stock rallied around 6% until the stock market decided to pull back. Then that lowered the PLTR stock price back down. However, there is still hope because the volume on this stock remains high for now, so hopefully a more bullish tone will emerge for Palantir after the stock market cools off. Now, if you are anything like me, I like to invest into every stock market pullback, so I am using this as an opportunity to double down on my core positions, while also investing the majority of my money into some indexed ETFs. I don't think it would be hard to assume that the PLTR stock price will reach over $31 before year's end, even though the current stock price is somewhere around $26. However, if the stock price breaks the $27.49 resistance level again, we could see a huge, massive bullish run upwards. In the meantime, we just don't want the stock price to drop below $23.49 because that would put the stock in bear territory, which we definitely don't want. I think the stock will stay somewhere between $23 and $27 for the time being, which would be neutral. At least it's going to be neutral until a catalyst or news comes out, which could cause the stock price to break out again. If you didn't know, Palantir not only has great technology, but they also have amazing management, such as their CEO, who is Alex Karp, and their co-founder, Peter Thiel, who invested very early into PayPal, Palantir, and Facebook, to where his Roth IRA is worth millions and hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars. Currently, there is a bill by House Democrats to limit the tax-free exemptions on Roth IRAs. The article says this, and I quote, "Thiel could be forced to withdraw all but $20 million from his Roth IRA after House Democrats revealed a tax package that would force distribution of individual retirement accounts, 401k plans, and other retirement nest eggs that are above $10 million, according to CNBC. End quote. And the problem here is that all people, including Peter Thiel, who own PLTR shares in their Roth IRA or 401ks, could be forced to sell, or at minimum may be taxed on amounts above $10 million, which could cause some people to sell stocks, including Palantir stock, which would lower its price. This would also discourage investors from taking risks and putting high-growth stocks like Palantir into their IRAs, which could also slow the stock's price growth. But currently, this bill says that shareholders have to withdraw 100% of any asset which puts their total account worth above $20 million. Palantir's Peter Thiel clearly fits into that category because his Roth IRA is worth somewhere around $5 to $7 billion. Also, Peter Thiel is not the only one that does this. For instance, Warren Buffett does the same thing, and it's because they can use this to get out of taxes. Because in a Roth IRA, you can invest into it, and then after 59.5, you can take the growth of those assets out, and the growth will be tax-free. So I also encourage anyone to open up a Roth IRA and just invest into ETFs and index, but again, this is not financial advice, that's just what I do. Moving right along to Palantir's concerning dark pool activity, and if you didn't already know, a dark pool allows institutional investors to trade stocks without the public knowing. So, from the graph that I'm about to show on screen, we can see that Palantir Technologies stock price in blue lines up perfectly with dark pool volumes in gray. So someone is clearly manipulating the stock price, and they're doing this very heavily. For instance, we saw this on August 20th and a little earlier. You can see how the dark pool activity volume rises. We can see how the stock price reflects those volumes. And the reason that this is bad is because they can cause the stock to rise and fall at their whim, so they can either put call options out or even short the stock, and they're going to make money both ways. For this exact reason and manipulation, this is why I do not sell stocks if the stock skyrockets or even plummets, because I know that long-term holders, the majority of the time, if you picked a very good company, that the stock is going to appreciate as time goes on, and I'm not going to pay attention to short-term volatility. However, what I found very interesting is that the dark pool activity for Palantir and Snowflake, especially on August 25th, was very synchronized, so whoever's doing this is actually doing this to more than one stock. Now, as retail investors and traders, we really can't do anything about these dark pool fluctuations, but I do want you to keep them in the back of your mind when the stock price either skyrockets or plummets, that it actually might not be due to bad news or even a catalyst. It could be due to dark pool activity. Now, you don't have to utilize my buy and hold strategy, but just personally, it has worked out very well for me, especially over the last couple years. So before we talk about SENS stock, let's summarize our Palantir news findings. First, we know that the stock market is pulling back right now, and we don't want the Palantir stock price to fall under $23.49, otherwise it would be considered bearish. Anything above that price point is either bullish or neutral, and ideally we would want to re-establish a support line at $27.49 after we break that resistance level. For Senseonics stock news, I wanted to report on a very bearish article because I've been telling you all about the great benefits of SENS stock lately, but now I want to present both sides, so let's quickly talk about the drawbacks. Senseonics develops continuous glucose monitoring systems for people with diabetes, and in the last year the stock has surged around 350% thanks to Reddit. However, their soon-to-be best performing and longest lasting system is still under review by the FDA, which investors think could cause the stock price to absolutely explode once the approval is announced. The overall sentiment for SENS stock is bullish and positive, including the social media sentiment from investors. However, SENS does have a good amount of short interest as well, which makes up for 22% of their total float, which is pretty high, especially for short interest, which either means that the stock could short squeeze and explode in price, or it means that retail investors will take profits and the stock will crash. Now, this article thinks the latter because Senseonics has an extremely high valuation, making the stock overpriced in their opinion. According to the article, the stock trades at a PE ratio of 119 times, which is over 1,300% higher than the PE ratio of its industry, which is only around 8. Also, their forward EV to sales multiple is 114, which is over 1,500% greater than the industry average which they are in, which is only 6.82. This means that the SENS stock price is very overpriced compared to their industry and their amount of sales and revenues compared to what they are actually worth. This article says that they rank as an F stock, which is a strong sell. But again, you have to weigh the good news with the bad news, and there are going to be bulls and bears, and I like to present both sides. But what do you all think? Are you invested into PLTR stock and SENS stock? Why or why not? Comment your thoughts down below. Remember to like this video right now for more stock news updates. Turn on all subscription notifications to stay informed, and I will see you in the next YT video.